Alright, we're back in the shop today. Actually a day late. FedEx, I guess, held the package, bad weather or what have you. But anyway, we got the replacement springs. All of these items were individually wrapped up in like a paper-like material, really well wrapped, all put together. Everything's labeled. You got the front springs here. It's labeled on the spring and on the adapter that came with it. All the parts and wrenches are in here. I opted not to get the full race kit, which basically also includes machined collars with pinholes. I'm going to use these stock steel rings for now, and I've already got a couple of the rings machined. I just need to get them cleaned up. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and put these together. It's a little cold in the shop today. We got some snow yesterday. There's not any left on the ground now, but I will be turning on the heater, so I apologize for any of the audio issues that may result from, but it's pretty chilly down here in the shop. I'm probably going to start with the rear first. The instructions look pretty clear cut. I'll go through those real quick. I was actually thinking about painting these springs, and then I remembered I already do have some red on the RZR. The front winch lead is red, and the seat belt disconnects are red. And these are just the tender springs. The main springs are silver, which already match the RZR. Got some red here, so I'm just going to leave them red. I think it'll look okay. It'll be one less step to the process. But I'm going to pull these out. We're going to start with the rear first, and I'll probably show one per side. They're basically going to be the exact same thing. I don't want to bore you in the video. But I'll show you how I put together each one of the types of shocks. Really, the only difference that I can actually see is the rear tender spring is obviously a lot larger diameter coil. I'm going to try to come through on the camera, but basically there's the difference. This is the front, which is a smaller spring than this is. Okay, the install is fairly simple. We've got the shock here. Basically what the first step is to run these threaded collars all the way up. You want to put your adapter ring with the flattest side to the collars, and you can see the step here. The spring goes inside of it. This is just personal preference. The shock label, I'm just making sure it's facing in the right direction. And then you want your, I guess these stage collars here. You want the steps to be facing toward the piggyback, which will be down. So you want to assemble it like this, and basically these just go on, and you'll thread those onto the shock body. And this will be a lot easier without the spring in the way. You just want to be careful. This is aluminum on aluminum. And kind of hold this up so you can kind of see what this looks like. So basically you just screw these on. The kit does come with wrenches for these collars. You need to use your stock Polaris collar for the tool for this, but these small ones it does come with the tools. And I'm pretty much following the instructions that come with the kit are pretty much verbatim what I'm mentioning. It's fairly simple. Basically we're going to run this down to a preset area. They have a particular measuring procedure that they want you to do to get it initially set. We're going to get these on down the shock and get these set before we put everything together as close as we can. The next part that'll go on will be the slider, the mainspring, and then the retainer. Okay, but at least for the rears I haven't got to the front yet. You will need a set of spring compressors. I picked this one up on Amazon. I'll put a link to it. It's really inexpensive, and basically it has two ways of doing it. One is a I took a 7/8 inch wrench, and basically you can tighten them up with a wrench, or you can stick a 1/2 inch drive down in here, tighten them. It doesn't take very much. I think I grabbed a hold of 3 coils. You need to grab a hold of 3 coils to get enough room to slide the retainer in. Basically the way this goes together is first you want to put on your bottom adapter all the way up against the retaining collars. You want to put your small collars on, and it says to get those within about 1 inch of the upper retainers, just to get them out of the way, I guess. Then you put your tender spring on. You want to put your plastic slider, and the larger side goes down towards the main spring. So in this view, it would actually be going up. Remember, the shock's flipped over upside down from the way it's installed in the machine right now. And once you get enough compression, you basically want to slowly start letting it back up. Once you get this retainer on and the adapter on, I measured, I've got 17 inches of unsprung spring, and that's basically including these adapter plates. Because what they're wanting you to measure is we want, I believe it's 5/8 of an inch of preload. So when I get all this together, we're going to measure this and then adjust this preload nut till we reduce that by the recommended amount for the rear. I'm going to go ahead and get these spring compressors loose on each side, get this to seat. Well, one thing I've done, I've kind of tried to line everything up. I've got the eyelets lined up down here with the label on the shock, or on the spring. And then as I release this, I'm going to keep this one lined up. So everything's lined up all the way up to the shock. And I'm going to try to plate to have this retainer lined up to the rear. But anyway, that's the basics, at least for the rear. You will need a spring compressor, and it doesn't take a lot of coils. Like I say, I grabbed a hold of 3 coils. You don't have a lot of room here because you got the shock body right here, and you really don't want to get this in your way. This rubber shock absorber is still pushed down, so it's this particular spring compressor fits just fine. So I'm going to release this and keep everything lined up, and I'll do the other one off camera and go ahead and start installing the rear shocks and try to get the rear set up first. Okay, I've got the spring set, and basically what I did is basically I've got this collar tightened up. I don't have the rear tightened up yet. I've got this where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and do the rear before I actually tighten this up. But this is at the correct height. And what they want you to do is measure from this, the top of this bushing or slider, to the bottom of this collar. And to do that, you need a something flexible. A tape measure won't cut it because you can't get it in down between the springs. But if you've got a flexible rule, you can slide it up to the top end of the spring, and just make sure that you keep the measuring part level. I hope that comes through on the camera. But where you bend the level, you don't have an arc in it. You actually want to bend it back here and make sure that this part of the level, or of the ruler, is level, so you get an accurate measurement. Some nice cut tools to do the tightening. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this collar up, or the small collar up. Go ahead and put together the other rear shock, and just verify that everything looks right. I am using the default settings that they recommend, and then we'll put the rear shocks on. Okay, this is the second rear shock. A couple of things. One, I kind of arranged my spring compressor this time to where it's a lot easier to get to from the top. Two, this is a little bit shorter. It's about 1/8 under 17. And as you noticed on the last one, a piece of this foam works really good for kind of keeping everything together. So I'm just going to get this one compressed real quick, and we'll put the retainer in. And you really don't have to worry about the alignment. When you put the retainer in, there's still enough room where you can slide everything around. So that's one time saver that I'll get on this pass. You learn a little bit every time you do something. I'm just trying to improve the process. It should make it a little bit quicker to get this on. Okay, so the retainer's on. You can back these back off. And then you can get everything lined up. Just be sure that you take your measurement prior to having any load on the spring. You basically just want to kind of set it up, measure the total distance, and you want to decrease it by the amount listed in the instructions for your preload. So this spring went a lot quicker than the last one. Learned a few things. Also on the collar, the instructions kind of confused me, or maybe they're just trying to get it out of the way, but I did not screw these smaller collar nuts all the way down. I put them in approximately the same position, just to speed, so you don't have to send that collar all the way back down the shock to get it aligned. Okay, now we're going to do the same process. We're going to preload this by measuring how much just freestanding with no load. We're going to decrease this by 5/8 of an inch. That's what the setting is for this razor with these springs. And I did get the heavy springs, as I've got quite a bit of stuff in the back of the razor. I usually run with a passenger, and I do plan on getting a spare tire. So I'm going to go ahead and set this shock up the same as the rear. Make sure everything jives as far as the measurements, and then just do one final double check, and then I'll put it on the machine. Okay, we got the first one in. Went in fairly easy. The only thing I'll say is make sure you have something to align the shock to this lower mount. It's not dead on. And on the back, the bolt sticks through this way, and the nut's on the back side, so the nut's facing the back side of the machine. Everything looks good. Really won't know anything to actually put weight on it and ride it around. But it's mounted, and I'm going to go over to the other side and get the other one mounted, and then we'll get started on the fronts. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the way they look. I'm glad I left these red. We're going to tighten these rear shocks. These are 15 millimeter, as said before. Just did my final inspection, my final measurements. Everything looks correct, and I double checked it against the other side. The shock towers on this particular razor, this should work for the 900S and the 1000, is 42 foot-pounds on the shock tower bolts. Okay, that gets this side. Got these, both the shock tower bolt, the lower bolt, and the top bolt torqued down to 42 foot-pounds. Just set the rear down. Already I can tell I gained all the clearance back. I haven't actually done a measurement. It won't do much good until I get the front end done. But already, it's looking a lot better. The tender spring's not flapped anymore. Everything looks good. Looks like it's going to be pretty close to where it's supposed to be just by looking at where it's laying at now. I want to go ahead and get these bolts torqued up for the wheel lugs, and put the front shocks together, get those on, get the front tires on, and we'll take some measurements. Okay, we're going to get these torqued up to spec. I've already torqued a couple of the bolts. We've got one bolt still left, and we're going to check all the rest. For aluminum rims on these razors, at least the 900S and 1000, it's 120 foot-pounds, which surprises a lot of people. I put these on initially with a 3/8 inch impact gun, the Cobalt that I use all the time. A 3/8 inch impact, most impacts won't do 120 pounds. So just keep that in mind if you're out in the woods, especially if you're using the electric 3/8 inch. It's probably not getting the wheel lugs completely tight. 120 pounds is what they should be. Okay, we're on the front shock. I've got the top bolt in, getting ready to put the bottom bolt in. The front shocks are exactly the same as the rear. The only difference is you don't need a spring compressor for the front. So when you're screwing your collar stops on the back, I would go about maybe an inch or two away from the end of the threads. That way you're not having to screw them all the way back on. They don't have to be screwed off as far as the rears do. The rears, you basically want to screw those all the way back to the furthest thread that you can. And again, on the front, the nut side on both the top and the bottom go back towards the machine. This is a trick I found, and it doesn't always work. If you're by yourself, you can basically pick this up, put the bolt a little way through it and drop it. It'll kind of let you get it lined up a little better and a little quicker. There we go. Now you will have to pick up on the A-arm to get this in. Okay, we got that one on. I'm going to run over to the other side, pop the shock on, and then we'll torque these down. These are the same torque, 42 foot-pounds for the shock towers. Once I get those tightened down, we'll put the tires on. I'm going to have to back the shocks clicks off, and I'm going to set it to the default. I believe it's 3 to 4 for the front and 4 to 5 for the rear. But I'm going to set them equal. I'm probably going to set them both at 4 just to start out with. Okay, the front's completely done. Getting ready to put the tires back on. The only thing really I'll note is this side, the top bolt, is very difficult to get to. The best way I found to do it is actually flip the ratchet up this way, and you can get that bolt tightened up a lot quicker. Everything else is pretty straightforward. The springs look good. Everything looks right. I'm going to pop the tires on real quick, and we'll see how she sits and take some measurements. Alright, I've already measured the rear. We're at 13.5, so we've gained quite a bit of ground clearance. I'm checking the front here, and again I'm checking up to the tab. 13.5. So pretty much the RZR's level. I'm going to stick with that for now. That should be pretty close. It definitely looks taller, especially in the back. And I've got a full load and plus some tools laying around here and there. I've sit in the machine and let it settle down. Tomorrow, when it's sunny, I'll take it out and ride it, and then I'll recheck everything. All in all, I'm real happy with. I think it's Schmidty Racing. That's where I bought these springs at. They were very helpful, and everything pretty much fit. Everything was well packaged. It was basically like Christmas morning. All of the springs and everything were basically paper wrapped like you would a Christmas present, other than there was no tape. But they arrived to me in great shape. Everything worked out good. I think the RZR is where it's actually supposed to be. And I'll get a little bit more ride testing in when it's daylight outside. Okay, I'm going to take a quick night ride just to see what this does. We'll consider this bonus footage. Okay, I'm not really sure how much the camera caught, but it's definitely a lot smoother. I'll know a lot more when I get it out in the daylight, but I just couldn't resist. Anyway, hope that comes through. Overall, pretty happy with these springs. I can't really ask for much more. Everything fit together like it was supposed to. You got great support. The instructions were excellent. Just in case you're looking, these are the guys that sell those springs. You can find them online. I paid retail for these, and this is just from doing research online. There are a couple of really good options, and I chose this one mainly for the fact that I really like they use a major manufacturer spring and list who they actually use, and you'll get additional stickers from that manufacturer as well. Kit went together really good. If you like the videos, please like, please subscribe. I'm really striving to get to that 1,000 subscriber milestone here shortly. And thanks for everybody's support. We'll see you on the next one.